Hey guys, in this particular video, we have a few parajumbles. Most of them are easy. What I want you to understand is to not really worry so much about the answer, uh, because once you're well trained or once you practice enough, you should probably be able to solve each of these questions in under a minute. That should be the target. But the point here is to use these as a foundation. Okay, I want you to focus on the method, the rules, more than the answer itself. I mean, it annoys me sometimes in CAT test because students generally are too worried about the key, about the answer, rather than about the method or the approach. You strengthen your approach in easier questions like this, so you can uh, use them for the more difficult ones. What you need to do here is pause the video, solve the question yourself before I launch into the explanation. We will do this for each of the subsequent questions as well. As soon as the question comes up, you just pause the video, solve it. Take about a couple of minutes. Ideally, when you have practiced well enough, you should be able to solve each of these questions in under a minute. All of them are pretty easy, okay, except probably the one at the end. Otherwise, under 1 minute, 1.5 minutes max. Okay. Quickly look at the first question here. Okay, the film's villain Eric Killmonger is carried dying by its eponymous hero to a high ridge to watch the sunset. Now, when I'm looking at this question, the first glance, what do I see? I see a pronoun here. Okay, I see the film's villain here. Okay, and then I don't see anything else. Uh, why is this habit important? Step one of every paranormal question is to have one glance, absorb everything that you're looking at in one glance. What's the subject that you can pick? One glance means less than 5 seconds. Okay, if I have to define it tangibly, in 5 seconds, what's the information that you can collect? If you see connectors on the left side, okay, or if you see proper nouns, if you see dates, if you see those words that we're going to discuss about connection words, those words, connection words and connectors and dates and full names and half names, these make solving parajumbles easier. And what is the purpose at the end of the day? What is the method? Summary of the method is you're trying to form pairs. You only pick parajumble questions where you can find pairs. Once you have pairs, you can obviously decide which pair comes first. But the coupling of the sentence is important. So if you pick the wrong question, you do not know which sentence gets coupled with which sentence. That's why we're looking for the key, the grammar clues, right? The grammar clue here, for example, is the word the film's villain, which means there is some previous sentence that's talking about a particular film's name. The is a definite article, so it can be used only when it has some whatever follows it. The common noun that follows it, film here, has been discussed earlier. Now it's important to remember that this rule has an exception. Okay, again, like all grammar rules have exceptions. The is useful only when the common noun following the film in this case has a proper noun in a previous sentence. Okay, the country follows a sentence which has India somewhere. Okay, but if I say the world's getting warmer and warmer, the here does not help you as a clue as far as a PFQ question is concerned because world does not have a proper noun elsewhere. So the as a definite article is useful when it's followed by a common noun whose proper noun also exists in the paragraph. Now the film means somewhere I should be able to spot a film. Luckily, it's not so difficult to spot proper nouns, which is why I keep telling you look for proper nouns. Proper nouns are there, easy to spot, make the connection. So I have one clue here, isn't it? Then I have the film name here, and I have the film here. Anyway, the film's villain Eric Killmonger is carried dying by its eponymous hero to a high ridge to watch the sunset. Grammatically dependent, contextually also dependent. So this is not going to be the percentage of the paragraph. In a big Hollywood movie, a superhero movie known as He delivers. So I know there's a proper noun here. He delivers a stinging rebuke to those who would overlook the history of racial injustice. So whenever you see a sentence like this, the stinging rebuke, the sentence immediately after the sentence must have the rebuke, or the sentence immediately before the sentence must have. Okay, so the sentence should give you a sense of incompleteness, which is why the good readers almost always solve parajumbles fast, but can't explain to you how they got the answer right, isn't it? It's the gut feel because you know something's incomplete. But you can still train yourself to be good readers. Bitter and in pain, he refuses medical treatment and says, "Just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors who jumped from the ships, because they knew death was better than bondage." And we can identify that this part is the rebuke, isn't it? This part is the only one that seems to have racial connotations, racial injustice connotations. So rebuke is obviously a criticism, something said negatively. So I know that those two parts are connected. At the end of Marvel Studios' 2008 hit Black Panther, there is a moment that unfailingly reduces audiences to a stunned silence. Now I know the film here, so I know that one has to follow four because this is where the paragraph is getting discussed, right? This is where the paragraph is getting this is where the film name is getting discussed. Apologies, uh, but instead of see if you're making a story, you still know four starts a paragraph, but someone who follows grammar will be much faster because the moment I see this is called the introduction. Marvel Studios 2018 hit Black Panther. So whenever there's an introduction given to a particular word, that sentence comes before any other references of that word. Okay, so for example, two different sentences are speaking about Black Panther. Here, for example, instead of saying the film's villain, if I had said Black Panther's villain, four would still come ahead of one because Marvel Studios 2018 hit. That intro is given in the first occurrence. No author would speak about the film and then later give the intro, right? It's just pointless. Intro by its very nature has to be given right at the beginning. So grammatically, I know four comes before one without using my brain, without trying to understand the story in four, without trying to understand the story in one. I'm just seeing and spotting. That's why grammar is so useful in parasymbols. That's why stay away or veer away from story formation. Stick to the grammar and critical reasoning part. That will always tell you, the right approach. Anyway, at the end of Marvel Studios 2018 hit Black Panther, there is a moment. What is the moment? The moment here is being described. Isn't it? It's carried dying by its eponymous hero to a high ridge to watch the sunset. Done. So four and then one. And I know that both two and three come after one because there is a he here and there is a he here. And pronoun sentence has to come after the noun sentence. Also remember there cannot be a gap between the pronoun sentence and the proper noun. Okay, I can't speak about Barack Obama in sentence one and say he in the third sentence, which is why you will notice the usage of Obama, the first name. When do authors use first name? When there is a gap between the proper noun sentence and the later sentence where I want to talk about this person. If I'm speaking about Barack Obama in the immediate next sentence, I can just say he. If I speak later, I have to say Obama, which is also why, another corollary, the full name should come before the half name. Obama cannot come before Barack Obama. So if you see a parajumble question where you can see Barack Obama clearly and Obama, you already have one clue. That sentence comes before this sentence. Things like this help you solve parajumbles faster. So I know 2, 3 come later. The big question is, does 2 come first or 3 come first, isn't it? So if you look at starting of 3, bitter and in pain, he refuses medical treatment and then says something like this. Okay. If I understood what was a stinging rebuke, I know that the stinging rebuke is talking about this part, right? So between this part and this part, I can't have this part. Bitter and in pain, he refuses medical treatment, physical condition. So I know that 3 has to come first because this part connects to this part. Isn't it? It's carried dying to watch the sunset, bitter and in pain, physical condition still continuing, and then he makes a statement. Then I have moved on from the statement to the review. You understand the point? So 3 has to come before 2. 2 should not be coming before 3 because between two subiders I cannot put a stranger. The flow is lost. So this particular phrase is literally helping you get the order, which is why it's not story formation but grammar and reasoning that helps you solve. You need not understand what is happening in the parajumbles question if you understand the grammar, because grammar will never cheat you even under pressure. Rules are rules, right? So stinging rebuke, vocab, I know what the meaning, what the word means. I see the actual comment. Between these two, I can't talk about something else. So I know that 3 has to come first. So the order for this particular paragraph will be 4, and then I have 1, then I have 3, and then I have 2. Let's look at the next question. What are the things that I see outright? Okay, I see a but here, okay, which is a contrast marker. But and however are powerful contrast markers. Nevertheless is one more. Nonetheless is one more. What does a contrast marker mean? The tone of the previous sentence and the tone of the following sentence, they don't sit well with each other, or they're opposites of each other. Okay, he's a smart student, but he's a lazy student. Isn't it? Classic example. I love DC movies, but I also like Marvel movies, like that. So what follows and what follows at the but, what comes before but, they should be contrasted with each. That's why it's called a contrast marker. So, but the fact is that Marvel makes some of the most thoughtful. This part is positive, thoughtful, nuanced, positive words. So whatever comes before but should be negative. So I should be looking for negative sentences, right? The director of The Godfather, Francis Ford Coppola, then described. Okay, take note of the word then here. Then described Marvel's output as despicable. while British director Ken Loach dismissed the movies as marketing exercise. Now, this is the part which you should only read once. You should never read this part a second time. Why should you read this part a second time? Again, even in RC passages, this is an exercise that you should be cognizant about. There are useful parts and useless parts in every sentence. The second part is just imitating the first part, just mimicking the first part, right? So whatever the sentence, whatever is the tone of this part is pretty much the same as the tone here. Now I don't get anything new here. First time I don't know that. Until I read, I don't know what is happening. The second time, and you wouldn't solve a paradox question invariably you want to read it a second time, right? So second time you shouldn't be reading the useless parts. You're almost always saving time. First time you took 30 seconds, second time you shouldn't be taking 30 seconds. You should probably be taking only 15 seconds, right? So otherwise it's this sentence, the then here makes it a dependent sentence. Without then it would have been an independent sentence. This discussion, this again here, this works like a pronoun as well as an adjective, but the purpose is the same. It points to something that happened earlier. Some discussion has taken place earlier. This discussion, again, led by extraordinary filmmaking talents. Talents are here in this particular sentence. Names. That's all I need to know. I don't need to know that these guys are filmmaking talents. All I need to know is this one's pointing to some people, and I have some people here. And probably I have a person here. And grounded in serious concerns about the place for independence of thought in the modern studio system is a valuable one. Now, this part here, double dash is there, so I should just read it as if it's within brackets. The actual sentence is from here to here straight away. This discussion is a valuable one. That's all. When you're reading it a second time, you just read that part. Whatever comes between those two parts is almost like it's placed within brackets. Okay, take note of that. Martin Scorsese described Marvel's popular superhero movies as theme parks and said that the films were not the cinema of human beings trying to convey emotional, psychological experience to another human being. This part is negative. Okay, only once. I don't need to read it afterwards. All I know is Martin Scorsese said something negative. Martin Scorsese said something negative. This guy, Francis Ford Coppola, said something negative, despicable. So I know that these two are negative. This part is positive. There is a but here, isn't it? So pretty clear. That's the reason in the beginning, when we see a but there and we see this discussion here and we see proper, you should get very excited about a question like this. Question like this is bread and butter for you in the exam. If you see an exam, you should literally see yourself, getting a lot of marks in a very little time. Not the kind of question you should let go of. Okay, and that's what the practice should give you, the confidence to tell yourself at one glance that this is the kind of question I should be able to solve, right? So 2 and 4 come in the first part. I know that this discussion obviously is talking about the discussion in 2 and 4, and 1 comes in the end. Big question for you is 2 comes first or 4 comes first. You know that there is a then here. Therefore, 2 follows 4. So it will be 4, 2, 3, and 1. That's the order. What if I remove the then here? If you remember in the intro, I had told you some questions are unsolvable questions. This is what happens. If it's a bad question setter, the bad question setter, just to make this question difficult, would remove the then. And would still justify the order as 4, 2, 3, 1. Okay? Because they know the answer, right? It's very easy to justify. But you would not understand why not 2, 4. That's why you should be careful about the text solution. The text solution should tell you that 2 comes after 4 here because of then. Okay? And the text solution without then cannot justify why 2 has to come after 4. 2 and 4 are what you call lateral arguments without the word then. Lateral arguments means they have the same status. One doesn't follow the other. Okay? So 2 can come, and then I can say, so I can speak about 2 people here, and then say Martin Scorsese described Marvel's popular superhero movies as theme parks. I can put it then here, and then 4 comes after 2. Remember? So watch out for these words. That's what I want you to learn. Know what these words are like. Then, like since, okay, which is pointing to some time frame already. Just they're pointing to time frames, right? So they always point to something that's already happening. So 2 comes after 4, 4, 2, this discussion in 3, 4, 2, 3, and then 1 change of tone. Okay, the answer is 4, 2, 3, 1. Let's look at the next question. I hope there are John Wick fans here. One of the best things I can say about John Wick is that you will like it, right? Super action. Then Keanu Reeves is one's favorite. So don't get excited when you see something familiar, because you then end up using your general knowledge and your sense of familiarity and prejudice. Be careful. You're not supposed to use your general knowledge while solving questions in ERC. What you read is what you use to solve. Anyway, one of the best things I can say about John Wick is that I had really loved to see more movies set in this world, hopefully from the same directors, as their handle on this menu feels refreshing and new. Okay, so I'm looking at this world. I'm looking at this menu. So probably, okay, I can't be sure here because the author already says one of the best things I say about John Wick is that I really love to see more movies set in this world. This world could refer to John Wick's world. It's understood. So I cannot be absolutely sure that there is some sentence before one which is talking about some world, but there is a chance. If the subsequent sentences are talking about some world, you know one straight away comes after that. But it need not be guaranteed. That's what you need to understand. Okay. So grammar and context, they are always intertwined with each other, right? Of course, which is again a connector. Of course, a movie about a relentless vengeance machine can only go so far. This is a test of your understanding of language. Can only go so far is negative, right? Uh, looks a little ugly, so get rid of this. Can only go so far negative. What does it mean? Can only go so far? It can't go too far. Okay, relentless vengeance is not enough as a plot device. We need something more. I'm looking for something positive to follow this sentence. Of course. So the previous sentence has to be talking about vengeance because of course is a connector from there, right? In the urban environment, as soon as you see urban environment, your eyes should light up because we already read this world and this milieu. Environment, these are all synonyms. This is how your vocab gets tested. World, milieu, environment, these are all synonyms of each other. Okay, they may not mean the exact same things, but authors use different words to make the connections, right? So you should make those connections while you're reading while you're reading the sentence first time itself. You don't have to read the second time. Don't get into the habit of reading all four sentences first and then trying to find the clues. Finding the clues has to happen in the very first time you're reading the question, right? In the urban environment of John Wick, an entire service industry of divers, cleaners, and bellmen it should be, apologies, live by night and a code of ethics that naturally can be bent for the right price. This is an independent sentence, okay? We don't need to worry too much about this sentence. John Wick ups its game. As soon as you see ups its game, your eyes should light up again. Why should they light up again? Because in a previous part of this question, we had read something negative. It can only go so far. On vengeance, it can only go so far. But John Wick ups its game. Okay, does something better by stopping in for the night at a hotel for contract killers, opening a door into a criminal underworld that in lesser hands would seem silly. Now, if you notice, this part, this sentence and this sentence are both talking about that underworld. Okay, how do I know which one comes first? The underworld has been introduced in the second part of the sentence, isn't it? Therefore, 3 has to come after 4. Okay, so if two sentences are talking about the same thing, okay, for example, let's say sentence 1 is talking about New Delhi and sentence 2 is also talking about New Delhi. The sentence in which New Delhi has been introduced in the second part will come first because I don't want space between those two categories, as we've discussed in the previous question also, right? So I know that 4 has to come before 3, right? The urban environment continues. Elaboration comes after, the idea has been presented. Criminal underworld. In that environment, entire service industry of drivers, players, bellmen, whatever. And this world or this milieu is there. So I know that 1 comes after 3. So I have 4 and then I have 3 and then I have 1. Okay. Where do I put 2? The of course here is your big 2. Usually, of course, is a connector, right? So it helps you take the sentence, put it after something else. But none of the other 3 sentences have anything about vengeance. So I know that 2 has to come at the top of the paragraph. Because if I put 2 after 1 or 4 or 3, the of course will be a jarring connection. It will not match with the previous sentence, right? How does of course, how is of course justified if what follows of course is talking about vengeance and what precedes of course is talking about a criminal underworld? There's no connection. So the of course will not let you put 2 after 1 or 3 or 4. You put it at the top. This is a lesson for all those who have this amazing way of solving parajumbles. I'm being sarcastic if you didn't catch it. That, oh, this is an introductory sentence. This sounds like an introduction sentence. Let's put it at the top. Oh, this starts with a but, or however, it can't be the first sentence of the paragraph. Don't go by that logic, okay? Because the paragraph could be the third or the fourth paragraph from an essay. It could start with a but, it could start with an and, it could start with any connection. The connection does not rule out the fact that this can't be the first sentence of the paragraph. You should look for the tone. The tone is more important. So, for example, if the sentence says, but he's an amazing person, and then there are 3 more sentences which are all talking positive stuff, you know that the but sentence has to come first because I need a negative sentence in front of it. None of the other sentences are negative, isn't it? So, make sure you do not have rigid ideas, rigid wrong ideas, and a lot of teachers go wrong here as well. They say this is an introductory sentence, therefore put it at the top. Don't go by that method. Always lands you in a soup. Of course, a movie about a relentless vengeance machine can only go so far, comes at the top of the paragraph because otherwise, of course, won't fit with the rest of the sentences. What's the order? You have 2 first, And then John Wick opposites game. It's a connection from can only go so far. Then I have 3 in the urban environment of John Wick. All this happens. One of the best things I can say about John Wick is that I'd really love to see more movies set in this world. The world has already been described, isn't it? So that is the order. Let's move on to the next question. Okay, on first glance, what do I see? I see the word though. Okay, and many students get excited when they see though, although, despite, in spite of. Don't get excited. That's what I want to point out, because these are not connections to the previous ones. These are not connected words. Okay, though, although specifically, the conjunction is the point inside the sentence. So there are two parts in although or though sentence. Those two are connected using the word though or although. They don't point to the previous sentence. So nothing to get excited about here, isn't it? So let's just undo it. The other thing that is more important, which should get you excited, is this Britannica here, Encyclopedia Britannica here. Okay, if you remember, full name always comes before the half name. So doesn't matter what exists in the rest of the question. I don't need to worry. I know 3 always comes before 1, not necessarily immediately in front of 1, but in the order 3 has to come before 1, because full name always comes before half name, number 1. Then I also see so here, which is on the left, so I don't have to actually glance. And I see and more specifically. An easy question, right? Not as difficult as the John Wick question. So again, bread and butter question. As soon as you see a question, one glance, less than 5 seconds. It's called the 5-second rule. Okay, that in 5 seconds you should be able to see 2-3 clues. You know that you're going to solve the question in less than 1 minute. What are the clues? Connectors on the left side, like this. You see proper nouns, half names. You see dates. Okay, and you see the list of connector words which should be on your wall. More and more we discuss. Positive connectors, negative connectors, contrast, markers, all these words. Make a list of them as we go through this video. Put it on a wall somewhere. Okay. Now, though the Britannica would still be available online, the writing on the virtual wall was clear. It had been supplanted by the internet. Now, this sentence is a classic example of a sentence that's grammatically independent. It does not need some other sentence to exist in front of it, but it is contextually dependent. Okay, that's why again, good readers know by their gut feel that this can't start a paragraph. They can't explain to you why. But the logical reason why it can't be the first sentence of the paragraph would still be available online. The writing on the virtual wall was clear. Okay. The author says something in the past. When I say the writing was clear, there's a good chance I've established the context, even if I don't know that sentence 3 has full name, Encyclopedia Britannica, even if I don't know that. If I know that, it becomes very easy to say, well, it's obviously not a starting sentence. But even if I did not know that, the writing on the virtual wall was clear from something. That's something I need to know. Okay. But since it's grammatically independent, you can't straight away say, oh, there has to be definitely something before. But you have an inkling that, okay, probably I need the context. And more specifically by an upstart phenomenon, Wikipedia. By the time I come here, okay, by the time I come here, by the time I come here, an upstart phenomenon Wikipedia, I already know 1 and 2 are a pair. How do I know 1 and 2 are a pair? It had from the word sub. It's the vocab question almost. It's supplanted by the internet. Supplanted or replaced by the internet. So Britannica was replaced by the internet. But more specifically, if I'm going a little deeper, who's replacing it, Britannica? Not internet in general, but by Wikipedia, the free crowdsourced encyclopedia. So this is the other clue. Crowdsourced encyclopedia. So I know there's a connection. That since its inception 2001 had rapid. This is the extra information. I don't need to be reading all this information, right? Read once. That's it. Second time reading, it's criminal. For more than a century, the long stately rows of Encyclopedia Britannica have been a fixture on the shelves of many an educated person's home. Okay, you know that 3 has to come before 1. We know why, right? Encyclopedia Britannica comes before Britannica. So I know that the skeleton of the paragraph is 3, then 1 and 2, because 2 has to follow 1. So it was a shock. Now shock is a negative word. Why is it a shock? Because there is a positive expression in the sentence. And there have been a fixture on the shelves of many an educated person. So have been there for more than a century on the shelves of educated people who like to show off on the entire collection. I mean, pretty common wallpaper too. So it was a shock to many when in 2012 the venerable institution announced it would no longer publish. This is the context for why it was clear. Okay. So I can't put 1, obviously now we know why, because this is the context that is required, isn't it? Now the writing on the wall was clear. Virtual wall is just a pun on internet. So I know that 3 and 4 is one couple. I know that 1 and 2 is one couple. 3, 4 is upstream to 1, 2. Now, I don't have to do story formation or context exploration to decide that 3, 4 comes before 1, 2. If I know the simple rule that Encyclopedia Britannica has to come before Britannica. That's the importance of grammar. Okay, that's the importance of some hard and fast rules. Yes, through story and through critical reasoning, I still know that 3, 4 is the context, therefore it has to come before 1 and 2. Good readers almost always know before 1, 3 and 4 the context has to come. But I can be faster because I glance Encyclopedia Britannica in front of Britannica, I straight away know 3 comes before 1 any day. So 3, 4 is one block. So 3, 4 comes before 1. 3, 4, 1, 2 becomes the order. Okay. That brings us to the end of this particular video. I hope you made your notes. I hope you picked up a few tips. Make sure you use them to practice as you get faster and faster. Thank you very much.